Welcome to the Dream Power Show, where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Welcome to the Dream Power Show. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. March 1st was International Women's Day, where the focus was on celebrating the accomplishments of women worldwide. It was also a day to recognize that the work isn't done, that there are many issues that remain that keep women all over the world from achieving their full potential. One woman who has dedicated her life to helping women break through both business and personal barriers is my guest. For the past 20 years, Marsh Engle has led live events, wrote books, and coached thousands of women into creating purposeful lives, who have in turn spurred others on to achieve their own successes. In celebration of her 20th anniversary, Marsh has come out with a new book as part of her Amazing Women Legacy series. It's called Amazing Women, It's Your Time to Emerge. And full disclosure, I'm honored to be one of the contributing authors to this powerful narrative. And with that, welcome to the Dream Power Show, Marsh.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I love the introduction. It inspired me hearing you speak about full disclosure. You're part of this powerful new book.
Well, I'm all about honesty. So, if I bring somebody on to talk about their book, I have to say, hey, you know what? I'm in it too. And I'm proud of it. I mean, I think it's
And what
important.
yes, amazing contribution you made.
I want to start off, Marsh, with just say you've been at this for a long time. And when you first started, did you think that 20 years later, your work would have all been done?
I had no idea, honestly. I'd like to tell you that in 1999, my mom passed away. My mom died suddenly, unexpectedly on January 15th, 1999. And that was awakening for me, that I realized that the way life had been, the structure that I'd given my work, the focus of my contribution as an entertainment marketer for television and film, a great career, but not my calling. And I found that when my mom passed, there was something really urging me forward. It was urging me to search for the amazing woman. And of course, the amazing woman I was searching for was the amazing woman within myself. So, in all honesty, when I started this vision, this dream downloaded into me, this vision, I caught this vision, this idea of insight to search for the amazing woman. The woman I was really searching for was myself. And little did I know that 20 years later, it would have grown into a movement.
You mentioned the word mission, and getting back to that, I know one of your missions is to guide women into being legacy makers. What do you mean by that?
I believe that every single one of us, there's none of us that have been overlooked. We all have a voice that can make a massive contribution and difference in the world. That can be everything from motherhood, teacher, well-being expert, coach, a mentor. It can be a creator that designs businesses and works within the corporate environment. It can be a woman who is using her voice to empower, publish products, and put women's voices, which is one of my passions, to put women's voices into the media. It can be all different ways, all different definitions of a legacy. But what's important is that we understand a legacy is, how are we taking action? How are we visioning ourselves? What is the image that we hold of ourselves? And how do we put that image into an evolving purpose so that we're constantly ever more making a difference, making a contribution, leaving our footprint in the world, so that ultimately the legacy that we're leaving is creating what I believe to be an ever evolving atmosphere and environment for our next generation of amazing women, maybe our next multi-generations of amazing women.
So, what is the first step that a woman has to take on the way to becoming a legacy maker?
A legacy maker is to really understand who you are and what you stand for. But the pandemic brought into my awareness more than ever before that oftentimes we have an evolving purpose. And what I mean by evolving purpose is we start to redefine who we are. We start to evolve and create a new self-image about ourselves. We start to see that maybe there's possibilities that are yet untapped. Maybe there are interests that I've had that I've set aside, and now's the time they're being called up. So the first step is that we have to make an agreement with ourselves to allow that growing beyond the defined, to allow that evolving purpose to move through us, to allow ourselves to look at the way we've defined ourselves. And maybe we've defined ourselves in a perfect way for what we've been up to in the world. But now it's time to take a look at that self-image and see, is there more of us that's wishing to be expressed? So the first step of a legacy maker is to allow herself to let go of the way things have been and let herself see and lean into the way things can become. So I think that legacy making sounds like a big monumental experience of creating. I believe I'd like to define legacy making as me being the best that I can be so that I'm reflecting to you the best that you can be. And I think together we link arms and we lift each other so that together we're creating a legacy that is an evolving, purposeful, inspired, infused with energy and inspiration future that we're creating for ourselves and we're creating for one another.
Yeah, that all sounds wonderful, and it's a what magical goal to achieve. But too often, I think we find people we see, their friends or business associates, that just fail to achieve their goals. And I think the word that comes up for the reason for that is that four-letter word fear. If you could speak to that and
Mhm.
talk about how women can get beyond that so that they
Mhm.
can achieve what they're meant to be.
Well, I was meditating just last week and I brought this into one of the courses that I teach, and that fear is really designed to breed more fear within us. So that if fear gets a hold of us, what it's really, it's pure intention. The pure intention of fear is to create more fear within us. So I think that by getting a hold of an understanding that fear is an energetic quality that's designed to hold us back, or designed to keep us safe, or designed to keep us little or small, or designed to soften or mute our voices. And within ourselves, we've somewhere made an agreement that that's the way to go. And we have to get really honest with ourselves. One of the things that I believe diminishes fear faster than anything is a strong, very strong spiritual practice. And especially today with the environment that we're living in, it's absolutely going to be normal that fear is going to come into our awareness, that we're going to encounter fear. And then we're going to start to take that on personally, and we're going to start to make it our fear. And then I have a fear of is what's going to be, or I am fearful. We're going to start to speak fear into our own definitions of our future. So what we have to do is anchor ourselves. And what I found, especially during the pandemic, is a spiritual practice that brings us more into an embodiment of the truth and the power of who we are. And that's really something that's between you and you. We can look to others to empower us. We can look to others to keep us grounded and anchored. We can look to others to believe in us. But I believe that if there's anything that's going to mute fear faster than anything, it would be to have a strong spiritual practice so that we can begin to embody our creativity. We can embody the essence of who we are. We can begin to walk out into the world and become fortified in the strength of our creativity. And a spiritual practice, I can name some of the ways that I use spiritual practice. First of all, I surround myself with motivational speaking and inspirational talks. I listen. I have high vibration music going. Sounds woo woo, but it works because it's proven that sacred sound can raise the vibration of the body, which then raises our ability to lift up above anything that might be wanting to diminish our power. Breath work is incredibly powerful. There's lots of different forms of breath work that we can do, but breath work brings us into our body. There's all kinds of different types of meditations that we can do. Journaling is an incredibly powerful. Again, it sounds very simplified, but the truth is that when fear comes up, if you express what it is, what it's saying to you, what it's here to communicate to you, you may be surprised at what the fear is actually telling you. It may be urging you forward. It may be urging you to be a trailblazer or a pioneer in this way. And, I could go on because I believe that we as women today are being called to create new agreements within ourselves where we do step out as trailblazers. We do step out as pioneers. So those friends of yours that maybe are having challenges meeting their goals, or maybe even yourself, it could be that the way you've defined a goal is actually not the essential goal that you're being called to. It could be that there's something even greater that's wishing you to be brought forth through you. And that could be trailblazing a new message. That could be trailblazing a new idea. I'm back 20 years ago when Amazing Woman's Day became a movement early on in 2021. And we started bringing women together in 10 US cities the first year, 50 US cities the second year. And before we knew it, it was a movement. That was a very different approach. And I'm going to tell you, Debbie, I felt incredibly uncomfortable at times doing interviews because it was such an evolving understanding for many women. And it was an evolving understanding for me as well. So I had to go with understanding in new ways. I had to let go of what I thought, who I thought I was, which was behind the camera, creating promotional marketing for television and film, working with entertainment clients. I had a completely different definition. Who was I to speak my truth? And actually, somebody asked me the other day, which I thought was a great question, and somebody watching this right now may be asking themselves, is that what qualifies you? I'm going to almost laugh when I say this, is what qualifies you to do the work that you do? What qualifies you to be an inspiration, a visionary for the success or the leadership of women? And I immediately, became kind of reactive. Sadly, I will say, and I started naming the books that I'd written, or the awards or whatever, and those really didn't matter. And I paused for a moment and I said, the truth is, what any one of us isn't qualified to inspire another person to step up into their power? Is there any of us that has been overlooked when it comes to saying to another, I see you as a legacy leader. I see you as a voice of empowerment. I see you as a woman who can accomplish her goals. I see you as a woman who can walk through any level of fear and make friends with it and keep walking forward. So the answer is, what qualifies me to do the work that I do, or what qualifies any of us, is that we're all qualified. If we feel the calling and we can reach out to lift another, that's what we're all here to do. And especially right now in this moment.
I think that is such a powerful thing to say, because certainly it's in anybody can do it. You don't need a zillion degrees, and years and years and years and years of accomplishment. What you do need is a caring heart, and the desire to want to help. And it could, because it could go, when it goes down to the one-on-one level, it's just as simple as listening to somebody, hearing what they have to say, and through that, helping them realize what they have inside them that maybe they didn't even realize they had before. And it doesn't take more than just listening and being a caring person to do it.
I believe it was Maya Angelou and Oprah Winfrey that there's a quote that I'm going to paraphrase, but it's something like, creating a legacy is created through your day-to-day interactions. And last night, the words came to me just before I went to sleep, was that right now in this moment, someone's noticing the difference that you're making in their life. And I think that I wasn't saying that to myself. I might have been saying that to myself, but I might have been saying it to you. I might have been saying it to all the women in the book that is coming out in just a couple of weeks. I might have been saying that to anyone that's listening to this interview right now, is that be aware, be conscious, be alert, that right now, the way you're defining yourself, the way you're taking actions, the inspiration you're sharing, the words you're speaking to anyone at any time is your legacy. And that's what the way, if we begin to look at that, can you imagine the difference that we can make in the way we inspire each other and lift each other, just simply by knowing that right now someone is noticing the difference that you're making in their life.
How can people find out about the book and find out about you and your services?
Oh, thank you for asking. You can go to Amazing Woman Nation, amazingwomannation.com. Easy to find us there. And you'll find all the information about the book. You'll find information about programs that we're offering, including our Destiny Writing Program, which is a signature program that is incredible in helping us to find our calling and stay true to our missions. But also marshengle.com. Marshengle.com is another website that is dedicated more to me specifically. But the Amazing Woman Nation is where you're going to get all the information about how you can take part, buy the book, be part of all of our celebrations.
We've been speaking with women's empowerment mentor, Marsh Engle. We'll be right back with our next guest. One aspect of dream work that I find fascinating are the dreams of dying people. I saw this firsthand when I sat in my mother's hospice room and heard her talk in her sleep. She was having a dream about her father, and while at the time I was just learning about dream work, I knew enough to realize that she was communicating with him. I was able to tell her that she was going to see him soon, and this brought her a lot of comfort and helped ease her fears about dying. I've since found out that this phenomenon is very common, although sadly, most family members don't pay attention to this. But one person who does is dream practitioner and teacher Mary Jo Heyen. As a hospice volunteer, Mary Jo has worked with the dying and has written about it in her book, Dreaming into the Mystery: Explorations into Being with the Dreams and Visions of the Dying. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Mary Jo.
Well, thank you, Debbie. And I'm already stepping in with my throat thick because of the beautiful sharing about your mom at end of life. Thank you so much.
Oh.
I'm very touched. I think you can hear it in my voice. And what a great way to step into what we'll explore here together today, of how not just to acknowledge that there are dreams and visions at end of life, but as important perhaps is how can we be with them? How can we, a dream work practitioner such as ourselves, or a medical staff, or the caregivers that come, and the family, how can we be with each?
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on today, because I want to learn more about these kinds of dreams. And at the same time, I know that a lot of people might find the topic uncomfortable because a lot of us just don't even want to think about dying. But I kind of believe that understanding these dreams can be helpful in our discussions about death. So I want to know, do you find resistance from people when you tell them that you work with dreams of the dying?
I haven't been asked that question before, and that's a great question. I would say, instead of resistance, what might be what I think you were touching into is that a topic such as this, even dreams itself, but especially at end of life, what rises is our own fears. And this is what I do address. In fact, the book, I share my experiences with those at end of life, but I also have a big, do we be with people? And one of the first things is being aware of our own fears. It's okay to be afraid. This is a scary time. We don't know what's going on. We're in the don't know land. It's not something that can be fixed. no one knows better than perhaps the dying themselves that they're dying. And they really, that's what my experience shows, they really want to be met in that place and talk about it.
Because the fears, I mean, it's not just the dying people who have the fears, but their family have the fears as well.
Oh yeah, their world. And again, when hospice comes in, excuse me, what a wonderful supportive team. But we have to remember, many of us have our lives set. We know how we're going to live. We have control, seemingly think we have control of our lives and manage. And when there's someone enters hospice, that world gets turned 180. Strangers are coming into the house at all times, equipment. And so the families have a lot of fear. They don't know what to do.
Because
We can do it.
It is such a big unknown. But in your work as a hospice worker, how do you help these people understand their dreams?
What I do is what I actually, so I'll back up a little bit. I am a natural dream work practitioner, a natural dream work, and I can say more about that later if you'd like, there's a cadre of us, about 18, and we work with a particular way. And it's basically to find this way of inner and outer, a way to, just by being on planet Earth, we've lost connections with some of the truest parts of who we are. And the dreams want to help us bring us back into that alignment and that relationship. And so I work with clients, I was going to say all over the country, I work with clients all over the world, what I would say are mainstream clients. That same approach I take in to the hospice room with the hospice person, these precious people that our hospice lets the families know when they come on that here's all the support services, including that they have a dream work practitioner. And so then they will request, it's up to them, but they know they have this added layer of support. And so I'll be asked to come in. So already the person knows that they want to talk about their dream. And so what I do is they'll tell me the dream if they can. And I'll start to ask questions about it, what it's like for them in that moment. And right away, one of the first things is that many times, all of us, but especially at end of life, most of us haven't paid attention to our dreams. So the dying can be kind of startled by these dreams. They can be frightening and they won't want to share them. They may want to protect their families. So to be able to speak about the dreams with someone is really a support for them. And even more so, there's a healing, there's a comfort, there's a helping hand across that final threshold. So what might seem like, I worked with a fellow where he had, is it okay if I go ahead and share a dream as an example here?
Yes.
So I was working with a fellow and he had a recurring dream. This was for much of his life. He'd have a recurring dream where there was a car accident and it was terrible and he was afraid, and he would tell himself, I'll just wake up, and he could wake up. And now in hospice, he had the dream. He said, so I told myself, I'll just wake up. He said, but I couldn't wake up. He said, and he got even more. And so I stepped into that dream with him. I let him tell it. So I said, let's go back in to the dream. I said, you're not alone here now. I said, I'm sitting here with you, and go to the moment where you feel afraid, you're terrified, and you can't wake up. And let's just can you take one breath there? Most of us can take one breath. And he did. And we sat quietly. And then, Debbie, the tears came. And he said, here it comes. He said, here comes the grief. So under the fear was waiting the grief that he wanted to feel. And he said to me, he said, and this is a very strong man of faith. He said, I tell everybody I'm not afraid to die, but I am. And what a weight off of him in that moment to be able to share that. So
Mhm.
that's a very sweet, touching moment where it wasn't me, Mary Jo. It was, but my willingness to explore that dream with him, to stay with it, not explain it, not interpret it, but to help him feel it.
And did that help ease his fear?
Yes, because it doesn't mean that the fear is going to go away. We think that we've got to not have fear. My experience, and I'm so grateful for it, I think a quality of soul is that we can feel our fear and still be in the moment. And so he was afraid to die. He was, and that was okay. But he also knew he had support to do it. And then as the end came, it was very comforting for him.
Mhm. Are there any common themes that run through uh, the dreams that you've experienced with these dying people?
Well, one would be, and I'll bring in visions here now too. One would be that there starts to be more dreams of deceased family members. A few weeks, I think you and I had spoken about this, a few months to a few weeks before the death, those dreams are very similar to the dreams you and I might have tonight. They're this way of wanting to say, the dreams kind of say, do you know you're this way in the world? Is this how you want to be? And we realize we have a choice. Maybe you don't want to be certain ways we are in relationships or with ourselves. They're very supportive in coaxing us to, uh, to find that alignment to soul. So as the death approaches, then I do see a change in the dreams. And it now starts to come in forms of support, whether it's characters in the dream that the dreamer doesn't know, but they're supportive. They come there, they're less and less alone. Visions, which I think can happen anytime in our life. I don't think it's exclusive to end of life. Visions do start to come in those last few days to weeks, and that's oftentimes family members that have gone ahead, and that gives great comfort to
Do you,
support.
yeah, do you share this information with the family members?
Sometimes I do. It depends on what it is. And thank you for that question, because one of the words I use is sometimes these dreams that they share are confessionals too.
Mm.
Like I was working with a fellow, and near the end, he started to, and I think he was in his 80s. He was starting to have dreams of a girl he loved in high school. And so when I'd come in his room, he'd go, I had a dream about the little gal last night. And then, and the little gal and he would go for ice cream or go for a walk. And you could see this 80-year-old face turn into a 16-year-old boy in love. It was just so beautiful. And so as an example, as I was leaving one day, he said, hey, and I looked back, he goes, don't tell my wife, she won't understand. But he loved sharing that. And
Mm.
so that's what a way we get to be, to come in, person they can share with.
Well, Mary Jo, how can people find out more about you and your services?
They can go to, I'm going to give you two websites. My own personal one is maryjoheyen.com, www.maryjoheyen.com. That'll get you right to me. And I will give you the group I work with and it's thenaturaldream.com. And you can go there and read about all of the approaches we use to the work, including and I would encourage listeners, if you want to explore your own dreams, go to the About Us page and you'll see all of us listed there, and find someone that rings with you and get in touch and begin this wonderful exploration.
We've been speaking about the dreams of dying people with dream expert Mary Jo Heyen. We'll be right back with our next guest. Well, it's finally possible to see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the pandemic goes. With the vaccine becoming more and more available by the day, it appears we may be able to look this trying time in the mirror by the end of this year. But the pandemic has taken a toll that's going to take a long time to fix. In particular, how it's affected our youngest population, our children. While many still being forced to stay at home, they've been away from friends and social situations that are critical for their self development. And this has put parents, who have a stressful enough job as it is, at the breaking point. With few outlets at their disposal, they spend their days racking their brains on how to teach and entertain their children, and too often they find themselves falling short. My guest, Florence Ann Romano, known as the Windy City Nanny, has some advice for these stressed out parents, with some strategies on how to make their home life a win win situation for all. I'm curious to hear what she has to say. So, welcome to the Dream Power Show, Florence.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And I'm sure there's so many parents out there who want to hear what you have to say. Because, Florence, the focus of this show is to give people strategies on how to live their dream life.
Right.
But at this stage, over a year into the pandemic, I know a lot of parents who, even though they love their kids, they're ready to kill them.
That's the truth. Oh my gosh.
It takes all the strength they have to make it through the day.
Yes.
So, how do they manage their own mental health so it doesn't affect their kids and their ability to live the life that they love?
Well, when you look at the past year that we've all gone through, and can you believe it's been a year that we have gone through all of this? And you imagine your life going a certain way, and you think back on like 2019 when you were just living life, everything was good, you're walking around without a mask, and then all of a sudden the world stops. And the way the world stopped in this like 2 weeks to slow the spread, remember that? We all thought it wasn't going to last this long. We thought, this would be long behind us by now. We didn't think that the kids would not be back in school by this point. All of these things that we had to deal with in the moment, we kind of had to just deal with the present instead of anticipating what could be. Because I promise you, if someone had told us we would still be here now back then, I think emotionally and mentally it would have been even more taxing than it already is. So for me, it's always about taking what's in front of you, being as present as you can and saying, I'm just going to deal with today. I am going to deal with this today. I will worry about tomorrow. I always like to look at the glass half full. And whenever I've talked to parents and whenever they've reached out to me on Windy City Nanny and we talk through how they're feeling, what they're going through, I always say this isn't sustainable. But you have to survive it. So whatever you have to do to survive it, you have to do. And if that means the kids aren't practicing their multiplication tables as much as they should be, but you're having more family dinners, you're having more conversations, you're bonding more, you're taking care of the kids mentally and emotionally, you're taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally. I care more about that than I do about 2 + 2. Now, that doesn't mean that education is not important, that our kids are not suffering in terms of education, not being in school, remote learning. We're seeing the data. They're not learning at home. They're not. The remote learning is not working. And when you think about how kids learn and how they interact, how they socialize, you always hear the phrase, it takes a village. And I love that phrase, but I always want to expand it. It takes a village, yes, but like, where is the village? Is there a number to the village? Do you have directions to the village? And it's more complicated than that. And it's not just a village for parents. It's a village for children. When the kids were taken away from school, when they were brought inside like the rest of us, they were taken away from their village as well. So it's not just the parents that are suffering. We're all suffering from it. But the children also are feeling big feelings about the same things parents are. So it's about going through something together in this common denominator global way that will probably be one of the only times all of us in the nation beyond are able to relate to one another, because we all know what this feels like. But then let's bring it down into the walls of that home. You all know what this feels like. So you can relate to your child can relate to you in a way maybe they never have before.
That would be a wonderful thing. But what do you see as the biggest mistake that parents are making with their childcare right now?
Well, it has evolved because when the lockdown first happened, a lot of the daycares closed. And a lot of those daycares were privately owned, and a lot of them couldn't reopen because they didn't have the funds to be able to do so. So there were a lot of families that were left without daycare, of course, during the lockdown. But then when things reopened, their daycare wasn't there anymore, or they were on a wait list that was 100 miles long. So now they had to turn to other daycare. Maybe it was unregulated daycare. Maybe it was the first time they were going to decide to bring a nanny into the home. These are all very real situations for parents because, again, they're still working at home. Parents are still trying to do their job while also managing their children's lives and their remote learning and everything else they have to do. So the biggest mistake I see parents making right now is trying to be it all and do it all at the same time, because you can't. I'm here to tell you, you can't do it all at the same time. You can't do it all at the same time well either. So you need to give yourself that grace, and you need to give yourself a pass. You're going to do the most important things, and then the other things are going to fall to the side and you pick up the pieces later. But you can't put that pressure on yourself thinking you have to be super mom, super dad, that you don't feel anything, you can just keep going, your adrenaline's going to take you through, that you don't react to what's going on outside. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your family. And that's the number one mistake, is everyone is forgetting about what they need as a parent in order to keep going, because it trickles down.
Isn't that always the truth? Always the case, though, because mothers are always giving,
Yeah.
and the last person they're going to give to is themselves.
Of course.
Yeah. So,
but it's so important that they do, or else the operation shuts down.
so how do they find that time when the kids are home and they don't even have that little couple hours when they would normally be in
Right.
school?
Well, the good news is that things are opening up a little bit more, and there is more opportunity for us to ask for help. Believe me, several months ago when there was no opportunity to ask for help, we had to get super creative about how you gave yourself some time. And again, let's remember, not everyone's coming from a traditional or conventional home where there's two parents. There are single parents out there that are suffering greatly who don't have that help, don't have that spouse or that partner to be able to help them get through the days. So when you're thinking about what support looks like, I like to think outside the box. So when things were really bad and no one was allowed in the home and you weren't going anywhere else, you couldn't see anyone, I always said technology is going to save you at the end of the day. Maybe you're watching more movies or kids are doing more things on the internet than you normally would like in terms of screen time. That's not a battle you're going to fight right now. I'm going to tell you, the screen time battle, if one person says to me, how do I limit my kids' screen time right now? I'm like, why are you picking this battle? Because you can't. Technology is the only way we're surviving. So the truth is, technology can help you in this scenario. There are educational apps, FaceTime, Zoom, things like that, where they can see other people. You can hire a nanny or a babysitter for X amount of time on FaceTime. Maybe they entertain the kids, maybe they do their homework with them, and that frees up some time for you to maybe do some other things. But again, we're not talking about big moves here. We're talking about small things that help give you some grace, that help give you some relief during the day. But for Windy City Nanny, I always say my brand is centered around three philosophies, three pillars: that you build your village, you ask for help, and you let love in. So how do you ask for help right now? I know it's difficult because there are different parameters depending on where you live to do that, but it's important though that you do get creative with it. Like I said, hiring someone on FaceTime or whatever to be able to be there with your kids, or if you're able to come in the home, spend that little extra money to have someone come there and watch the kids for a little bit. Or maybe it's a community nanny share where the nanny is going to take the kids for a little while and take a couple of the other neighbor kids and they're going to go do something. Again, things are opening up a little bit more. It's more feasible now that they would be able to do it. But it's about making the time to make that choice. And I know not everyone has the extra money to spend. So it's also about being able to find people that are in your community that are going to help lift you up, put their arms around you, and say, no, I'm just going to be here to help you. I'm not keeping score. Let's lift each other up. Let's figure out how I can help, take some of the air out of the tires for you and how you can do that for me. It's about being vulnerable. And sometimes that's really hard.
Well, Florence, with a lot of kids being in online school, a lot of parents and particular mothers, because it seems like mothers have to bear the burden more than anybody else, also have to be their children's teachers, or at least their children's attendants while their kids are sitting in front of the screen, on their online classes.
Right.
What is the best way a parent can help their child so they don't get way behind in their education?
I think knowing your child is the first step. You know how your child learns, and right now you're learning more than ever how your child learns. And the funny part about this for me is the veil has kind of been lifted with the education system, because you used to go to teachers conferences, right? And you'd ask the teacher, how's my kid doing? Oh, it's fine. Here are their grades. And and you didn't really know how your child was in school or how the teacher taught. And now the veil has been lifted because the school is in your family room. You're hearing how the teacher teaches. You're seeing how your child interacts and how they're doing. And so that's something positive I think I'm going to take away from this pandemic experience, is I think parents are becoming much more interested and engaged in their child's education because they have to. They have no choice now. But I think it is something we should take going forward after the pandemic, about what our interest level is and what our children are learning and how they're learning. Because usually you would have your kid come home and say, oh, the teacher's terrible and they don't know how to teach, and I am having a hard time paying attention because of this or that. Well, now you kind of get to see both sides of the story. So that's intriguing to me. But for those of you that have to sit there and manage the schoolwork, I'm going to say the first thing that comes to mind, which is more power to you, because that is hard. That's not your job, is to be managing their schoolwork. You probably have another job to do. These parents that are working from home that have to also manage their children's remote learning, it's absolutely impossible for them to do that. So as much as a schedule as you can put them on, as much as they can do on their own, have them do it. But whatever they're going to fall back and fall behind with, this is going to be the unpopular thing, Debbie, that I'm going to say is, you know what? That's the teacher's job, is to catch them up. When all of this is said and done, your child and the rest of this world are going to be in the same boat. Everyone is going to be behind, and they are going to get caught up. I'm not trying to wax Pollyanna about it, because yes, there are certain things we are losing. We're losing precious time, and there are certain things that will be lost in the shuffle. But that's part of the sacrifice of going through a pandemic. There are things that we are going to lose that we're not going to be able to get back. But for the majority of the time, these kids are going to be able to recover from this academically. And that's what the teachers are there for. So do the best you can. I have seen so many pictures, and parents have written me so many times, pictures of kids crying in front of the crying in front of their computer. I can't do this anymore, Mom. This is too hard. So you know what? Sometimes you need to make the choices. The mom, we're skipping these couple of classes today. They're going to go outside and play. They're going to have a little downtime, whatever it is. You just have to get them through this. You have to get yourself through this. So stop putting the pressure on yourself thinking it has to be perfect, because it can't be.
Well, it's a cliche to say that children are our most valuable resource, but the truth is they are.
They are.
They are. Yeah. So, Florence, how can people find out more about you and your work?
You can go to windycitynanny.com. I'm also all over social, Windy City Nanny. If you DM me on Facebook or Instagram, I always answer every single person, and I love to engage. So there's no question that is stupid or small or insignificant. I am here for you, especially during these times where you feel very alone.
We've been speaking about successful parenting in these trying times with the Windy City Nanny, Florence Ann Romano. We'll be right back with our next guest. Anyone who's a regular viewer of this program already knows that I credit the movie What the Bleep Do We Know as the spark for leading me on my journey to study dream work. Well, there were real people behind that film, and I'm thrilled to have one of them as my guest. Betsy Chasse was one of the writers and directors of that groundbreaking movie. But there's so much more to Betsy than that. Since Bleep, she's written a number of books, including Tipping Sacred Cows and that now classic book on conscious parenting, which she co wrote with me. It came out of my vagina. Now what? And before and after Bleep, she's produced a slew of movies and is now shepherding the production of new films through SeeGood.tv. But today we're going to be focusing on her new book, a novel years in the making, Killing Buddha. And with that, welcome to the Dream Power Show, Betsy.
Oh, Debbie, it's so great to be here with you. I'm so excited. And I forgot, you asked me, I know you've read the book but you asked me for some questions, but we should talk about the lead role, the character of Sarah, and how she dreams a lot in the book. I totally didn't think about that, but something we could talk about because it's very interesting.
Absolutely. But, before we get to that, I want to get to the basics. Why the title Killing Buddha?
That's a good one. So there's a very famous Zen koan. If you see the Buddha let me try it again. If you see the Buddha along the road, kill him, or you'll follow him the rest of your life. And the teaching goes on to say, if you see the mother, kill the mother. And the sort of idea around that is that when we give something else our power, whether it be another person or a teacher or a concept or a book, we're giving our power away and we're not really doing ourselves service and we're not following our own path. And the character in Killing Buddha, that's a big lesson that she learns. And it's a big lesson that I learned throughout my whole life of always feeling like I was never good enough, smart enough, tall enough, pretty enough, whatever enough, enter whatever enough in front of the enough for you. And we tend to make those our Buddhas. Those are like the thing that we almost worship. And once we can kill them, we find that which we're really seeking is already within us.
So have you killed your own Buddha?
I've killed a lot of Buddhas, but I don't think like the koan of the teaching goes on. There's, we have thousands of Buddhas to kill. So I think that's part of the journey of life. Everyone says, why are we here? What's the meaning of life? And I think it's really to uncover all the things that we believe about the world and about ourselves, to uncover them and to really dissect them and understand, is this belief serving me? Is this teacher serving me? Is this guru? Is this whatever serving my internal, my goodness, my values, my ethics? And to really boil down to what are those and how do I live that in this world?
So you think that we really need to keep continually asking ourselves questions?
I think daily, I think, and it's funny, this because you and I are really good friends. So we joke about how often we think we're done with something, right? And then like it'll pop back up, and it'll pop back up in a different way, or a more nuanced way or a deeper way, because I don't think we're done. I don't think there's an end game here. Like part of what I talk about in the book is like, I think in the West, we've made enlightenment an end result. And people are seeking enlightenment, and then they will proclaim, I am enlightened. And the moment you proclaim you're enlightened about anything, it's surefire way to come and bite you in the ass right back again to remind you, nope, you're not.
This is very, very true. Well, getting back to the plot of the book, your heroine is named Sarah, and she is in the film business and goes through a life crisis. How much of this is based on your own life?
A lot of it is based on my own life, and a lot of it's changed. And a lot of people ask how much of it is exactly what happened when I made What the Bleep. Very different in terms of the cast of characters. But a lot of the personal journey and the personal story is my own. And I wanted to make it a novel for a couple reasons. One, because I thought that I could have more room to expand and make it more accessible and not just personally about me, to give the character a little more depth. And also I didn't want to piss a few people off, so I thought I'd make it into a novel, and then nobody's would get their feelings hurt, or would be mad if I forgot to put them in the book, or whatever. You know how that goes. So I think, I also wanted to be able to bring different characters. Every single character in this book goes on their own journey of killing their own Buddhas. And I hope there's a character that everybody can relate to.
Because there are quite a few characters in the book, and that's true.
Yeah.
You do go on a number of journeys.
Yeah.
You do take a hard look at what I call the spiritual guru business in this
Mhm.
book. Does that mean that there's no value in what these people are selling?
I think there's a lot of value in it. I think that I said this in my last book, Tipping Sacred Cows. The spiritual journey used to be a very personal, noble endeavor that we went on privately. It was something that we did for ourselves. And I jokingly say, leave it to the West to make it a romance novel about us. And I do think, and I'm partly to blame, because What the Bleep kind of reinvigorated the McDonaldization of spirituality, the sort of like one night stands to enlightenment. I think there's some valuable teachings, but I do think, just like with a lot of things in the world, we've shortened everything up to a quick meme, a quick bite, a weekend seminar, and you got it. And I think that does a disservice to people. And I think it's important for people to really understand that this if you're going to embark on real self-discovery and a real deep connection to spirituality, it's a daily, minute by minute, yearly, for your entire life practice. There's nothing that you're going to solve in a weekend. And so while I have a lot of fun with a lot of the different types of things that people do in the name of enlightenment, I try not to make fun of it. Like, you see movies like Wanderlust or some of these other films, and I can tell when somebody's kind of trying to mock or make fun of the spiritual movement. I can tell if they've actually ever done it or not, because they do it in such a cliche way. Whereas this book is really, I've done everything in this book. I've been to every event that I've talked about in this book in some way or another. And I think it's time we had a little fun and laughed at ourselves a little bit, at the funny, ridiculous things. My favorite thing, although I don't even remember if I mentioned this in the book, is like, spiritual people don't like to say God, right? Religious people don't like to say the universe, right? But they're literally talking about the same thing. So I just call it Bob, because for me it's a meaning. Like, well, I could call it God, I could call it universe, I could call it source, I could call it, the Planck scale, or I can call it Bob. Really, it gets down to, what does it mean to you, and how are you using it in your life? And it doesn't really matter whether you're holding a rose quartz or a malachite. At the end of the day, what you believe is what you create in the world.
One of the things you talked about earlier that I want to really drill down on is your central character's dreams. That she had several major dreams throughout the book that really had an effect on her. What made you decide to make her a dreamer?
Well, first of all, the work that you do, you know how much I love what you're up to. And I've noticed, I mean, Sarah Wells is obviously based off of me, and I tend to have very prophetic, is that how you say it? Prophetic dreams. And even when I'm like just sitting, daydreaming and or dreaming sleep. And so I think, one, it's a great way to introduce concepts and things into a story. But I've noticed that, there's a dream that she has with her father. I had a dream with my father, and he talked to me. And I just thought, so often I have these dreams, and as you have shown me and taught me, pay attention, listen to them. What happens in them? Why do you think that is? As I started to do that in my own life, I started to realize how much I was missing by not paying attention. So I wanted to give the character that same opportunity.
And she does, and it does have a profound effect on her.
Yeah, it does, definitely. I think that's, for me, I don't look at like dream work as like we have to do dream work. Once I really learned from you and understood, like, how to use dreams, I realized how often, I'll go to bed at night, just like you say, and, program your dream or set an intention or what do you want to ask a question. And it's like, wow, the things that you get when you really focus in and do that, it is a profound transformation. And so much, it feels like it accelerates things for me. It accelerates with learning or an aha moment, when I go, what is it about this that I need to understand? Okay, boom, it'll show up in my dreams every time.
It does. That's what I keep saying every week.
Yep. Yeah.
Follow your dreams, pay attention to your dreams, because they will give you answers that you may not be expecting, but you better
Yeah.
believe them, better pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. It's true. I just had one the other day that was really surprising to me. And took me a while from waking up to really like, that's the other thing I don't do. Like if I don't understand what it meant, I don't try to pound it. I just go, okay, just leave it alone. It'll somewhere in the middle of today or tomorrow, you'll go, ah, now I get it. And so that happened to me just the other day.
And what was the dream about? Now you have to tell me.
No, gosh. So the dream was really, I mean, what it really meant was I started to have a little bit of anxiety and stress about the book coming out. And, before I went, I took this big trip to South America with my kids and I kind of uh, lost my pathway. What am I going to be doing with my life? And when I came back, I said, okay, I know what I want to do. I wrote Killing Buddha, which, your husband is the one who sitting in my living room one day said, you ought to write Killing Buddha and do a book. It would make a really good book, Betsy. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to write that in a book. So, but I went and I did it. And I was so glad that I did. But then I came back and the book, I'm like, okay, I've made this recommitment to my own creativity. And then COVID hit. And as you know, it's hard. It's hard to be a creative. It's hard to be a single mom raising two kids by yourself and to do it to fund or to have a livelihood that's funded based on your own creativity without going really and getting work and having a job and all that stuff. And so I really started to like, and as you know, I'm launching See Good TV with Trina, and that's a big endeavor, so I've got these big things like that I'm pushing forward. And I had this like really stressful few days of like, what am I doing? Like, should I be doing this? Am I really on the right pathway? And so that was my question in the dream. It was my intention was, I'd like reassurance around, am I on the right path? Should I keep going or should I just back off and do something else? And so in the dream, I've had this reoccurring dream my whole life of a little girl running through the woods. And it's interesting because that dream, depending on how the girl is running, tells me whether I'm on the right path or not. So I had the dream, and at the beginning of the dream, she was in a panic. She comes to a place where she can take one road or another, and she takes the other road. And in the dream, I'm slowing down, running. And that was my message of like, no, it's sort of like, when you do tarot cards, past, present, future. It was kind of like that kind of dream. Like the past was run, 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 run. And the present was slowing. And then in the dream, she just starts walking away. And then what happens at the end of the dream is I just see the little girl walking away from me, like just walking. And so that was my message, that's how I took it. I don't know.
How can people find out where to get the book and to find out more about you?
Go to betsychasse.net. They'll find everything. They'll find the book. They'll find my movies. They'll find See Good TV. They'll find you. It'll be fun.
We've been speaking with writer and filmmaker Betsy Chasse. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.